Okay. Anyways. I'm gonna teach about a growth mindset. I guess first we have to break down what that sentence really means. How to climb and improve in general. What does that really boil down to? Because that's two parts in one, right? And climbing is also like a broad concept, right? Climbing is just like a very like broad thing where it's just like elo gain. That's really what it is. But it's elo gain, and that's in of itself is like a huge thing, right? There's a lot of math and numbers involved. And honestly, if I were to get into that and how elo really works and how you can exploit elo systems, that wouldn't really help you as a player. So that's not really general improvement. So I guess you have to try to cross in between the two. And I guess what it really comes down to is like the way that you think about the game. Cause yes, this is a team-based shooter, right? So there are 5 people on each team, and you will have 4 teammates each game. That's a guarantee. And I know a lot of people, they like to complain about their teammates, and I personally do like to complain about my own teammates as well. But at the end of the day, you'll see me talking, right? You'll see me complain about teammates, but I also like acknowledge when things are my fault. I acknowledge when things are going bad, and even though my team is bad, I still like look for ways that I can impact the game in a way that is disproportionate and helps balance the scales, right? Does that make sense? It's like if my team is actively trying to make me miserable and throw the game, I still have to make up for them. Because that is how you're going to win the game. There's no other way to win the game at that point. And it's like a lot of people, when they see that their team is throwing, they just give up and throw the game. And you just thrown away a whole hour of play because of that. Like there's no other way you can ever make up for that. Because time is linear, and once you lose that section of time, it's lost forever. So that hour is gone forever. So you've already lost an hour of progress just by giving up on a game because your team is bad. So that's already a bad mindset. So I think a lot of people need to realize that just because your team is bad doesn't mean you can't win. If your team is bad, it just means that you can no longer make team plays, and you have to rely more so on solo plays. And that's what you'll see me do. Like if my team is good, I'll start like I'll communicate with them more often and try to coordinate things, right? But if my team is bad, I'll kind of start to try to make solo teams or solo plays. And that too, yeah, Nixie's right. And that too. Like even if your team is bad and you end up not winning the game, at least you tried your best and you tried things that you usually don't do, right? And since you tried those things that you usually don't do, and if those things do end up working, then you've just learned a new way to win more rounds. So a lot of people need to realize that it's not really about like elo gain, more so improving as a player. Because your elo will always trail you. Like I'm like no bullshit. A lot of people will say like, "Oh, this guy's boosted. This guy's like elo inflated." Like yes, that is true. Although that is true that people do get boosted and people do have like, and some people do get lucky win streaks and their elo inflated. But at the end of the day, if you play enough games, your elo will be close to where your skill actually is. So don't worry too much about the numbers. Like yeah, like yeah, there are ways to exploit an elo system such as 5 stacking and whatnot, right? Like there's ways that you can exploit it, but that'll never help you as a player because as soon as your 5 stack leaves you, or one day like your 5 stack can no longer play with you, then it's just over. You'll start elo free falling, and you'll fall back to exactly where you were before the 5 stack started. Because you're not improving as a player. You're relying on circumstances that aren't available to the average player. So you're pretty much just you're like it's like you're it's like you go boxing, but it's like you go boxing and no one is allowed headgear except for you. And then suddenly one day like they don't allow you to wear headgear, and it's like you're getting knocked out in one punch because you no longer know how to take a hit to the head. Does that make sense? So yeah, it's so that's generally just how you climb. Like it's not like when people say how do you climb, they're asking the wrong question. You shouldn't think of it as like how can I climb? It's more so like how can I win this? Like how can I play better than I did last game and win this game? again, this goes back to like the same concept of yesterday when we talked what we talked about yesterday, where it's like you just look at your feet and you take it one step at a time and just make every single step as perfect as possible. And you just keep improving that way, and that is generally just how you improve. And your elo will trail behind you, so don't really worry about the elo counts. Like yes, you'll have bad sprees and unfortunate things will happen, right? Like for me, I was at like 3K elo, and then one day we got fucking nuked because my duo got banned, and I got hit by elo rollback and it is doomed. But then at the end of the day, like the reason why I can't get back isn't because of that elo rollback. It's because I haven't like I wasn't supposed to be there to begin with, because I was he got banned. He got banned for trying to crash a server. So there was a game that he was losing that he didn't want to lose, and he tried to crash a server. So it was technically cheating. But he didn't. He wasn't like cheating, but he was trying to like manipulate the game so that way the game would get canceled, and it would count as a draw. Yeah, and he got banned. But that's not the reason why I stopped playing with him, because he could have just made another account and spoofed his ID. The reason I stopped playing with him is because he did a lot of weird things, like um, be a pedophile, like actually unironically, like he was being a pedophile. So, but yeah, the reason why I lost 700 something elo to that. Yo, what's up, Nesco? But yeah, the reason why I lost 700 elo to that, that's the reason why I lost 700 elo to that rollback is because of him getting banned. But that's not even like the reason why I can't get back isn't because of him. Does that make sense? Is because we like I was relying on as like a I was relying on something that isn't available to everybody else. Like we were able to play off of each other and pretty much just 2v5 the entire game. But that's not available to everybody. So the reason why I can't get back is because I no longer have access to that. So I'm not as self reliant play like I'm not as self reliant as I thought I was, right? So it's like you have to realize these things about yourself. You have to realize your shortcomings and try to improve them. And that's the only way you're ever going to actually climb. Like genuinely climb, right? A lot of people just like abuse five stack systems and end up climbing. But then as soon as their five stack leaves them, they'll either abandon the account and never play again, or they'll still keep playing and end up free falling. So yeah, there's not like a lot of people like when they come to ask high elo players, like I get this question a lot. People are like, "Dude, Atlas, like how are you climbing so well? Like how did you get to the elo that you get to? Is there like some sort of trick?" And it's like, and then these people like they're the same type of people that get disappointed when I tell them, "Dude, there's no shortcut. There's genuinely no shortcut to being good at something. Like we're not gods, are we? That we can't just like omnisciently absorb skills." So it's like at the end of the day, what really matters is just like hard work. There is no shortcut, and I know a lot of people are going to be disappointed when they hear me say this, and I'm pretty sure any pro or any real pro that is genuinely trying to give you good advice will tell you the same thing, that there is no shortcut. And the only way to get truly better is by putting in the hard work and having that mindset of being like, "Hey dude, I'm not actually as good of a player as I thought I was, and I need to improve on X, Y, and Z, and I can identify these things." It's this continual process of identifying your flaws and then trying to polish them. That is how you get better. So that's a skill in of its own, to have that self-awareness. And that's what separates like insane players to just decent players to just bad players, is that mindset. What's unfortunate for me is my duo isn't as good as me, so I'm carrying a lot and I enjoy playing with him, but I really want to improve and win more. I mean, that's fine. Like honestly, like if you want to do it with someone and just have fun, like go for it. Like if it's fun for you to enjoy play, like if it's fun for you to play with them. Like at the end of the day, like you're going to climb if your skill shows. Does that make sense? It's like you're going to improve as a player regardless, and so is he. So long as your duo is someone who is reflective of that, and he's also in that sort of mindset where he's able to grow, then you're both just make it up together. I would just be careful though, because one day if you do stop playing with your duo and he was something that you relied on, then you're going to free fall a little bit. So yeah. Um, but yeah, hopefully this guide helped. This wasn't really a usual guide of like a mechanics tutorial, but more so like a guide to being a better player. Because before I know we touched on like how to have good aim routines, how to have good crosshair placement, what makes for good positioning, right? But yeah, not everything is. Are the guides up on YouTube or just in VODs? They're up on YouTube. I have to make a playlist for them still, so that way it's easier to find. But it's kind of like, but I haven't done it yet, so I'll probably have to end up doing that. I'll probably do it tonight actually, and make it easy for everyone to find. But yeah, those guides are already up. Um, yeah, but hopefully this guide was helpful. This guide wasn't really much of a physical one, but it definitely was. I definitely think it's something necessary for people to hear, because I think this guide is actually more important than any guide I've ever made in the past. Because this guide is generally, or like not generally, but genuinely the foundation to anything. Foundation to anything that you to like any skill that you want to improve. There's no shortcuts. Yes, you can have good habits and like and follow the other guys where like you just copy them to a T and you understand how to do those steps. But at the end of the day, you're never like even if you know those steps, you're never going to use them right if you don't understand how to actually improve. Yeah, actually. You're what a lot of people don't understand, right? Whenever like if you ask a pro and they try to give you shortcuts on how to improve, they're not really a pro. Like yes, they made it pro, but they're not truly a pro at heart. They're kind of like frauds if you think about it. Like if they try to give you shortcuts on how to get better quick, like they're either milking you for attention and like views, or they just don't actually know what they're talking about. So that's why I think like players like Hiko, because there's this like when I back in the day when I used to like actually try to grind the game, right? And I was like watching streamers to get better. I watched Hiko a lot, and what Hiko always said that 90% of the game was positioning and 10% of it was aim, and I think he's full of shit. Like back then I believed him, but after I started going on my own way and improving myself as a player, I started to realize that he's just kind of like he's kind of bullshitting you. 90% of the game is not positioning and 10% of it is not aim. I would say that those things only make up for maybe like 5% each. Not even, probably less than that. It's hard to tell. But those things are all 3% maybe of what you actually are doing. And 90% of it is your mentality to the game. 90% of what makes you 90% of the game is your mentality to approaching the game. Like does that make sense? Your mentality is the reason why you are the player that you are, or not even mentality is the reason why you're the person that you are, not even the player that you are. And it's like that's what sets you apart from someone who's going to flourish and someone who's going to just stagnate. So yeah. So I guess if there's one thing that you can take away from this guide is to actually just stop like unironically putting the full blame on your team. Like it's okay to do it as a joke, right? And realize that in the back, like in the, it's okay to do as a joke, but also like it's okay to do as a joke, but as long as you know that like at the end of the day, it's still up to you. You can't control what other people do, so just do what you do. Like control your own game. Like for every game that you lose, I I think a lot of people fall into the fallacy of like, oh, every time I lose a game, it's my team's fault, but when I win a game, it's because I carried. I don't think that's true, right? I think I think it's always. I think you should always put. I think you should always put like this might sound unproportional, but this is genuinely how you improve, right? You have to be hard on yourself. Like yes, it's a bit self-destructive, but at the end of the day, being hard on yourself is what makes you grow faster and grow better, right? So it's like the way I think about it is that like 80% of what happens in my games is because of me. If I lose a game, it's 80% my fault. If I win a game, it's 80% my fault. Like it's regardless of results. And yeah, that's like that might just be me seeming like, oh, that might just be me being way too hard on myself, but it's also like at the end of the day, that is how I improve. Because when I think that way, it means that I can more critically look at each move I make, right? So if I die to something, like I can easily like discern whether or not it was my fault, one, and two, what I could have done differently. Because if you die, usually if you die in a game, usually if you die in a round of Counter Strike, it is your fault. 99% of the time, it is your fault that you died. I don't think it's possible to play a game where you literally do everything perfect and it's entirely your team's fault you lose. Yeah. If you think about it, right? If you do everything perfect, that means you would have zero deaths, right? Or maybe one or two, where like you had to force a trade. But even, but even then, like it's still sort of your fault for not flicking fast enough, right? Although like you can't realistically you can't expect that of yourself, so I wouldn't really pin that on you. But yeah, like if you were a perfect player, you'd have like one, two, three, maybe five deaths max a game. Yeah, you can't hit every shot, so maybe like five deaths a game if you're a perfect player. But rarely is it ever the case that someone only dies 5 times a game. So you're not a perfect player. So 99% of the times when you die, it's because of your fault. It's because of you. And like you did something wrong and you died because of it. I'm kind of a low elo player, but I feel like there are a lot of winning fights coming from where and when you choose to take them or how. Yeah, actually. Like if you died, it's because you did something wrong, right? And I think that's a lot of like the reason why some people just never improve. It's like they die and they instantly go to looking at their teammates for the reasons. Like I see it like multiple times a night, or not even probably like one or two players every game will always be thinking like that. Where like they die and then they're like and they instantly start blaming their team. It's like this is why they never improve. And you see that being the case, especially with lower elo players, right? Low elo players fall victim to this even more so than high elo players. There are high elo players that fall victim to this, but I think it's more prevalent the lower you go. Especially when you see people that have played thousands of matches and they're still like low elo. So obviously that's not always the case. There could be some people that genuinely just can't climb because of physical ailments. There's some people that have like Parkinson's and they still try to play the game. Then like genuinely they can't hit every shot. They can't even hit most of their shots, and it's not really their faults. But yeah, yeah. The only time where it could be actively your team's fault entirely is if they're inting you. That is true. So like the only time you can blame your team fully is if like they're purposely like team blocking you or like mauling you or putting or like flashing you on purpose. So yeah, that is the mindset. But yeah, hopefully this guide helped.